Hello, and welcome to the Member Compliance Assistance Workshop of the Kings River Water Quality Coalition. This is an online recording of workshops that we did across the coalition area in January and February. Briefly, what we're going to talk about today is some brief updates on both the State Water Resources Control Board and also the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. They are the two regulatory agencies that have adopted this regulation. The coalition is just here to serve the members of the area in the coalition and provide compliance assistance, and also work closely with both the state and regional water quality control boards to try to make this regulation as simple as possible for our members. Secondly, we're going to talk about each member's obligations for this coming year in 2017 by each of four distinct categories. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the Farm Evaluation Survey, some frequently asked questions, and the newest report that's required is the Nitrogen Management Plan Summary Report, and provide you with instructions on how to best complete that report. So briefly, the State Water Resources Control Board, they are the overseeing agency of the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. When the Central Valley Board adopted the regulation that we're currently under and required to comply with, when that was adopted, the State Board was petitioned both by the environmental groups and also the coalition and ag groups to make changes to the current regulation. They are currently in that process of hearing potential changes to the regulation. They put out a first draft back in February of 2016, and a second draft is expected in the very near future. That draft is more onerous than the current regulation that we have. There's several proposed changes that are very significant, have potential to be very significant on our members. The first is with data aggregation. The coalition serves as basically a buffer between the growers and the regulatory agencies, and we do that by the information that's collected. We aggregate that from our members and provide summaries of that information to the regulatory agencies. The state is proposing to get rid of that aggregation, and the coalitions basically be a transmittal entity between the grower and the state and regional water quality control boards. We think we're going to be successful in keeping this potential requirement from actually being adopted. The second is with yield reporting. We've worked hard with several of the ag groups to keep direct yield reporting out of the regulation. We came up with nitrogen applied and the A over Y ratio, which is applied nitrogen over yield, is basically an efficiency ratio. That has been broadly accepted and is being implemented now. The state board doesn't necessarily like the A over Y ratio and think it's simpler to get yield. But we disagree, our members disagree, and believe that the current reporting program is superior to what the state board is proposing. The third potential change that the state board is proposing is to require the monitoring of domestic wells on members' property. This is not part of the current regulation. The current regulation only deals with irrigation wells. As long as that well is used to irrigate farmland, it would be required to be part of the regulation. But domestic wells that only are only used for domestic purposes are not included in the current regulation. This addition will require each and every member who has a domestic well on their property that's in a same parcel as an irrigated lands operation to do a monthly or annual monitoring of their domestic well, and then report that results to the state and put it into a state database. The last big area of contention is the removal of the vulnerability areas. We currently have high and low vulnerability areas, and basically what that means is low vulnerability areas do not have to do as many of the reporting requirements and certification requirements as those in high vulnerability areas. The state does not like the two areas and just basically are proposing to make everybody high vulnerability by removing the vulnerability areas within their draft petition. None of these things are finalized, just want to reiterate that, but these are things that the coalition is working closely with the agricultural groups to try to make sure that these added requirements do not get put into the final regulation that's adopted by the State Water Resources Control Board. So with all that happening at the state level, the Central Valley Regional Board is focusing heavily on making sure the current regulation that they have in place is working. And the way that they are doing it is they are proposing fines, significant fines, and enforcement on growers who are not complying with the current program. The first one is for growers who have not enrolled in a coalition or not gotten a permit. Coalition participation is not mandatory, but it is the simplest way to comply. Basically, the coalition is a group permit. You join the coalition and you abide by the reporting requirements, and you have your permit to operate under this regulation. Those growers who have failed to get a permit or join a coalition group, they are targeting them significantly and have proposed fines of roughly about $50,000 per grower just for simply not having a permit. If you know anybody in this situation that does not currently have does not have a permit or not enrolled in a coalition group, please urge them to get a permit as soon as possible. The second layer that the regional board is focusing on enforcement is for growers that for non-submission of the required report. So this would be the farm evaluation survey and the nitrogen management plan summary report. Up in the northern part of the valley, some of the growers have had 3 years of requirements to turn in the farm evaluation survey, and up there they have proposed fines between $10,000 and $70,000 for just non-submittal of a farm evaluation survey. Very significant penalty for what I believe is a relatively minor infraction. But the Regional Water Quality Control Board believes that if they allow individuals to not comply with the regulation and don't send a strong message that compliance is mandatory, then that'll just start the cycle of less and less people complying with the order's requirements. And they definitely want to keep their current order in place as much as possible to try to prevent some of the requirements that the state board is proposing. So not a lot of good news there, but want to make sure everyone's aware of that situation so that's not a surprise. And you ever getting yourself into a situation where you get letters from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, please contact the coalition. We're here to help you in any of those situations. Now we're going to move on to the 2017 member requirements. Basically, there's 4 different categories. There's whether or not you're considered a small farm or large farm, or whether you're in a high vulnerability area or a low vulnerability area. So based upon those 4 criteria, your reporting requirements are slightly different. So the first one is the less than 60 irrigated acres in low vulnerability areas, 60 irrigated acres or more in a low vulnerability area, less than 60 irrigated acres in a high vulnerability area, and 60 or more irrigated acres in a high vulnerability area. So the first one, less than 60 irrigated acres in a low vulnerability area, this is the least amount of requirements. So if you fall into this category, it's pretty simple this current year. So the first thing you need to do, the new requirement for you, is you need to do a nitrogen management plan. The nitrogen management plan worksheet, you need to start that process, start the planning portion of that form, and keep it on farm. You need to start that by March 1st, 2017. Because you're in a low vulnerability area, this plan does not need to be certified. You can complete it entirely by yourself. And this plan is also not reported to the coalition. This is strictly an on-farm plan requirement. The second report that you'll have to do is the farm evaluation survey, but that is not a requirement for this category for 2017. You can download the form, take a look at it, but that's a requirement that you will have to do March 1st of 2018, and then that's every 5 years after that. So this is the simplest category of reporting within this coalition and every coalition group in the entire Central Valley. The second category is fairly similar to the first one, and this is if you are 60 or more irrigated acres and also in a low vulnerability area. Again, the nitrogen management plan, this is the first year that you have to have that plan, It's on farm by March 1st. It's the planning portion. Again, it does not need to be certified and does not need to be reported to the coalition. The one difference with this category versus the last category is the farm evaluation survey that was required of you by March 1st of last year, 2016. So most people got that in last year, but if you for some reason did not get that report in, you need to turn that into the coalition group as soon as possible. You could be subjecting yourself to potential enforcement by the Regional Water Quality Control Board if you did not turn that in as required March 1st of 2016. So because low vulnerability, this is an every 5-year requirement, so you were required to do it in 2016. Once you've done that farm evaluation survey, according to the current regulation, it's not required again until 2021. Category 3 is where it gets a little bit more significant, and that is the less than 60 irrigated acres in a high vulnerability area. Again, the nitrogen management plan is on farm by March 1st of 2017, so that is a new requirement for this category. The one difference between this category and the last two categories is that the plan must be certified. So to get it certified, the grower needs to attend the California Department of Food and Ag nitrogen certification class. The coalition has hosted a few of those. We'll be hosting more. The grower can take that 4-hour class, pass the test. They pass the test. They're certified for 3 years to certify their own plans. The second avenue is by hiring a certified crop advisor. Several of the fertilizer companies do have certified crop advisors on hand that can help you with this requirement, complete your forms, and certify them for you. So those are the two most popular categories, or two ways of getting your nitrogen management plan certified. The second is the farm evaluation survey by March 1st. That is an annual requirement in high vulnerability areas. It was required of you last year, and so make sure you have turned it in last year. And it is because it's an annual requirement, a new report needs to be turned in by March 1 of 17, and every year after that. And so if you turned in a form last year and there's not much changes to your operation, or there's no changes to your operation, you can resubmit what you did last year, but you must turn in something new every year. The third thing is the nitrogen summary report. So that's basically based upon your nitrogen management plan. Because the nitrogen management plan was just started for you this year, the summary report is not due for this category until March 1 of 2018. So that's something you should be looking at for reporting next year. Category 4 is the most onerous. That's 60 or more irrigated acres within a high vulnerability area. The main difference here is that the nitrogen management plan was actually a requirement of you back March 1st of 2015 and annually after that. The 2015 year wasn't required to be certified, but last year, 2016, was required to be certified, and every year after that. So you get those plans certified in the same manner I talked about in the last category. Because that nitrogen management plan was required last year and the year before, the summary report requirement is due for this category by March 1st of 2017 for the 2016 crop year. So basically, you take your completed nitrogen management plans from last year, both the planning and the actuals, what you ended up at, and then that forms the basis of your summary report for March 1 of 2017. We'll talk a little bit more about that in future slides. The last thing is the farm evaluation survey. That was a requirement last year. It is a requirement again this year and every year after that for this category. Again, if nothing changed from last year, you need to resubmit for this year. So 2 reports from this category will be submitted March 1 of 2017 for growers in this category. So everything that I just talked about is on our website, www.kingsriverwqc.org. If you're watching this video, you've already made your way to both the website and the back-end database. On our website, the resources page, there's member reporting timelines. There's instructional videos on all of the forms, the grower forms. The database has been recently upgraded. As you can see, you can manage your account, submit forms through the website. We have all the electronic reporting forms, the farm evaluation survey, in a PDF version. You can also access that in the back-end database. You can see what you submitted last year, walk through a couple steps and see if there are any changes. If there's no changes, you can click through and hit resubmit on the back-end database. Also, what you can do is you can download the farm evaluation survey, the PDF version of it, check the boxes, save it to your computer. Every year, go back, make whatever changes, and resubmit that way. The last one we highly recommend is downloading the Nitrogen Management Plan and Nitrogen Management Plan Summary Report Microsoft Excel worksheet. We actually, for this form, we do not recommend you use the backend database to complete this. We recommend you download the Excel spreadsheet. It allows you to input your data on the Nitrogen Management Plan, and then it automatically has a tab at the end, which is the summary report. It automatically grabs the information from your Nitrogen Management Plan and completes your summary report for you. You print that out and send it into the coalition to meet that compliance obligation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So before we go to the nitrogen, let's talk briefly about the farm evaluation survey. We've gone through this for multiple years, but last year was the first year reporting, and so we have some information maybe help you revise maybe what you submitted last year. So if you had changes to your operation for the 2016 year, different from what you did in 2015, you'll need to make changes. Some of those changes would be, especially if you're in a row crop situation, you planted something different on that field. If you've got a new planting, you would need to update your plan. If you had fallow acres last year and you're putting it back into production this year, or vice versa, that would be another change that would need to be made on your farm evaluation. The next thing would be if you had a new well or you abandoned a well, those kind of well changes would also need to be updated on your farm evaluation survey. If you had no changes, if you just got one crop and there's been no changes to your management practices or your wells or the crops that you've grown, all you need to do is make a copy of the form that you completed last year and resubmit it. And then again, the last option is if you're back in the back-end database, you should be able to see the report that you submitted last year. That's all been inputted into our system. You can make those minor modifications in the database, or if there's no changes, you can hit resubmit and meet that reporting requirement. So frequently asked questions on the farm evaluation survey. The number one issue that we had was non-submittal or no record of submittal. We highly recommend you keep a copy in your records and maintain some sort of proof of completion of submission. And so that if you're mailing it, make a copy of it. If you're faxing it, keep a fax confirmation sheet. If you're emailing it, keep a copy of your sent file of what you sent to the coalition. The second issue is with incomplete or missing or inaccurate information. This was last year was the first year of getting this report, and so it's confusing, and so we just need to make sure that as we go through this every year, you go back and look at the form and make sure it's accurate, and keep continuously updating and improving. And we'll continue as a coalition to identify things that we find that may be incomplete or missing, and work with you to complete these forms as accurately as we possibly can. So common issues that we saw was parts C and E. Again, if you're a single crop grower, you fill out the form once, all parts of it, and it's a fairly simple farm evaluation survey. If you have multiple crops or multiple practices across those crops, you'll need to complete a Part C for each one of those crops. And so you can't lump all your cotton acreage and your almond acreage all onto one Part C, because those are likely to have different management practices. And so you'll need to fill out basically a new Part C for each crop that you grow. And then if you've got different practices, different irrigation practices within that crop, you'll need to even further break it out from there. But those aren't likely, but it is possible. So basically, fill out a Part C for every crop that you grow, and then within that crop, if you've got almonds on drip and almonds on furrow, you would need 2 sheets even within almonds. So that's basically the number one issue is with Part C, and making sure you've got a new Part C for each crop that you grow. The second common issue that we had was the parcel number and what we had in our records being not the same. So we highly recommend when you fill out your farm evaluation survey, pull out your county tax records, look at the parcels that you own, make sure they're all enrolled in the coalition, and make sure the coalition's records are the same. So sometimes the county updates those parcel information, so you'll need to make sure that we have the correct parcel numbers, because if you put in the parcel number on the form that we don't have in our system, we can't match it up and do the work that we need to do on your behalf. So do that final check before you send the forms in to us. So now the nitrogen management plan, and really what we're going to be talking about is the nitrogen summary report. So again, for those of you that need to fill out this report this year, this is only high vulnerability areas, greater than 60 irrigated acres. You would look at your completed 2016 nitrogen management plans. Make sure you download the Excel worksheet, because it makes it the easiest to complete the nitrogen summary report, because you don't need to do any more new calculations. You just need to transcribe the data into your nitrogen management plan, and your summary report is automatically created for you. This is our home page. We have the nitrogen management plan. You click on the download button, it opens up, and you can download the workbook onto your computer. This is what it looks like. We've blown up the bottom tabs. The red tabs at the bottom are 10 different nitrogen management plan worksheets. So if you have 10 different crops, you need to fill out a worksheet for each of those crops. If you've got 11 crops, just save the file as a new name, or Part B or Part 2, and you'll have another 10 worksheets that you can work with. So they're highlighted in red because those are things that you do not turn into anybody. These are on-farm forms, and so do not turn the individual sheets of the nitrogen management plan into the coalition. Those are for your records and your purposes only. The yellow tabs are resources or the instructions for the forms, and the green tab all the way on the right is the nitrogen summary report. So it grabs the information in this workbook and fills it out automatically for you. If you only have one crop, you must start off on nitrogen management plan 1. Fill in nitrogen management plan 1. Start with that and move your way through as many different crops that you grow in within your membership. So this is what the nitrogen management plan worksheet looks like. All of the yellow tabs or the yellow highlighted cells are the areas where you need to fill in information. The rest of the cells do not change. They have it is not needed for you to put in any information in those boxes. Some of them have the automatic calculations for the total nitrogen applied, total in credits. Some of the categories are done automatically for you, so do not input anything besides in the yellow tabs. So once you've completed each of your nitrogen management plans for the 2016, so if you've already got these in paper version, just open up the Excel file and transcribe the information into each one of the red worksheets. You do that, and then you go to the green tab on the right, and this is the nitrogen plan summary report. If you've already completed each one of the templates, Each one of these cells that will grab information has 10 lines for each one of the 10 red worksheets. It does the calculations, it grabs the right information and places it in the right box. The only thing you will need to do on this worksheet, if you've done your nitrogen management plans correctly, is the yellow highlighted box is the submittal date. You need to type in the date or write the date in, print it out, and if you look at the right of this form, it has the instructions on how to submit this survey or this summary report to the coalition. You can email it to info@kingsriverwqc.org. If you do that, make sure you're only sending in the summary report. Do not send the rest of the nitrogen management plans with the Excel worksheet. You can fax it 237-5560. There's our mailing address, P.O. Box 8259, Fresno, California 93747, or you can hand deliver it to our offices at 4886 East Jensen Avenue. Also on our website is the resources page. This is something that beyond your farm evaluation survey and your nitrogen management plan, there's a lot more resources here to help you complete your nitrogen management plan. There's a listing of certified crop advisors available. It's a link to a resource for you there. There's an example nitrogen management plan worksheet that's filled out. So you can download that form and look at it, make sure you're filling out your nitrogen management plan correctly. There's a lot more resources here, timelines. Highly recommend that this is really the page for growers to go to for any information regarding this regulation or the coalition. So finally, the coalition is here to help you. We have mailed you, so we've gone through each one of these reporting requirements by categories. But earlier this year, early part of 2017, we mailed you specifically each member's requirements, which category they fell into, and what were their reporting requirements for 2017. We will do that again in 2018 and every year after that. That is the most accurate information we have for what your reporting requirements are. Also, we have staff here that's available to help you in the completion of your farm evaluation or the nitrogen summary templates. We can provide some assistance in completing your nitrogen management plan as well. But again, a reminder for those of you that need to have those certified, we do not have certified crop advisors to certify those plans for you. You will need to seek out an outside resource to help you with that. As always, you can come to our office, schedule a visit. We highly recommend you call us first and make an appointment. That way we can make sure we have staff on hand to take the time with you to complete your forms or answer any questions you have. Again, call our office 365-7958 or email us at info@kingsriverwqc.org. Again, thank you very much for being members of the coalition. Appreciate your participation. We understand this is a difficult regulatory requirement, and the coalition's here to help you through this difficult process. Thank you very much.